this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogmen, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, how's everybody doing? Good? Everything's doing well? As a matter of fact, I was commenting to the guest, which I will bring on in just a second, that even though technically it's spring over here in northern Florida, we're getting summer temps, 80s, 90s. And as a matter of fact, I was commenting with somebody like, I wonder what kind of summer, if it's going to be a really hot summer. But anyway, c'est la vie, mon ami. And also people wanted to ask, because I mentioned in the last show about, that I had gone into the racing pigeon thing. And I can't remember if I mentioned it in the last one, but so I'll mention it just in case I didn't. I had all my new babies. I had separated them. And I said, you know what? My idea was I had a male, 3 females. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put one of these females in here and see which one he likes the best. If there's like that, instant chemistry. I took one, which I called her mistakenly La Gordita, which is a little fat one, because it's one of those pigeons, kind of like broad, hefty. I put her in there. Oh my God. Turns out it's a male. They sent me, I thought I was getting, and it was negotiated. He went after my young boy, he's like a 2023 hatchling. It was like, oh my God, they're not mating. They're fighting. I had to take him out of there quick. And I was like, you're no girl. So yeah, I could tell. And I called up people that I knew in the pigeon world. I go, does this happen? I go, no, chances are that's a male. When they act like that, they're trying to basically establish dominance over, and this was an older male, a young male. Yeah, and I sent off for a feather to a lab for a DNA test just to, I was like, no doubt about it. But yeah, so yeah, I'm already working something out with the loft that sold me the pigeon, because it was like, I already had a male. I didn't want another male, but we'll work something out. I'm sure about it. It's a beautiful pigeon. It is beautiful pedigree. Nice. It's just that I wanted a girl. Believe it or not, there right now, and maybe this is just temporary, but when you go and you try to get certain type of these racing pigeons, the ones that have some type of pedigree with them, the females, I don't know, I noticed, because I've been following some of the auctions, that there's a short supply of females, of hens, which is what you call them. So I was like, okay, but yeah, that's my adventure in my new in pigeon world. You learn something new every day, because some people say, well, that if you feel in the little pelvic bone and the butt, and I was like, I'm not there. I would know. I would do it if I had to, if I knew what I was doing. How's that? Where I could see, oh, that's a male or female, but I'm far from learning how to do that. And they say, well, if you look at the head, and if the boy's head it's bigger and rounder or this and that. And I was like, no, don't know that. So off it went to DNA land. But anyway, let's get on to the good part. The good part is who is the guest today at Stories of the Supernatural. This is the first time this gentleman's been here. His name is Michael Cremo, and he is on the cutting edge of science and culture issues. He's done pilgrimages to sacred sites in India, appearing on national TV shows, lecturing at mainstream science conferences, or speaking to an alternative science gathering. He crosses disciplinary and cultural boundaries and he presents to various audiences a compelling case for negotiating a new consensus on the nature of reality. He is a member of the World Archaeological Congress and the European Association of Archaeologists, as well as an associate member of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, which specializes in history and philosophy of science. Now, over the past 2 centuries, researchers have found bones and artifacts showing that people like ourselves existed on Earth millions of years ago. But the scientific establishment has ignored these remarkable facts because they contradict the dominant views of human origins and antiquity. Forbidden archaeology, which is the field that Michael is involved in, challenges us to rethink our understanding of human origins, identity, and destiny, and takes us on one of the most fundamental components of the modern scientific worldview and invites us to take a courageous first step towards a new perspective. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, Michael?
Just fine. Great to be with you, Marlene, and all your viewers and listeners.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask you this because were you always interested in this all your life, or did something happen, some experience that you had that put you on this path?
Um, I would say I've always been interested ever since I can remember, even as a very young child, 3 or 4 years old. Was always interested in what's really true about things. Didn't
Okay.
like it, if I'd been deceived in any way. And I didn't appreciate it if even as a child I saw someone being misled or deceived about what the real truth of a situation is. So I think I've always had that as a core principle or value in my life. But as far as the archaeology topic goes, that has something to do with the way I grew up as I became older. My father was an officer in the United States Air Force, and he, for most of his career, was involved in intelligence. Now, uh, that meant a couple of things for me as I was growing up. First, it meant our family was living in a lot of different places in the United States and abroad. For example, when I was high school age, I was in Germany. And as part of that was that I got exposed to a lot of different cultures and worldviews. Once, when I was on a vacation, a spring vacation from high school in Germany, it was an American school run by the military for children of military people. Actually, Priscilla Bulow, who married
Really?
Elvis Presley, she was in our school, in
Interesting.
that high school in Wiesbaden. But on a vacation, I went to Stockholm, Sweden, and I was staying in a youth hostel, and I met some European kids, teenagers, who had gone to India and come back overland. You could do it in those days.
Okay.
That part of the world's a little dangerous now,
I imagine it's
hard to
changed.
do
Yeah,
it. But
unfortunately,
in
yes.
those days, you could travel overland through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and go to India. And these young people were telling me about the experiences they had there in the Himalayan mountains, the Ganges River, meeting different yogis and things like that, having spiritual experiences. And I became interested in that culture and started studying it, and
Okay.
later became a disciple of a guru from India.
Did you do the
So
overland trek in there, or how did?
I I did attempt to go overland
Mm-hmm.
uh, a couple of times. I didn't get all the way to India, and I think that was a good thing because I think I had to prepare myself
Okay.
spiritually before I would go there, because a lot of these sacred places, if you're not in the right mentality, you can have a disturbing experience or create disturbing effects unless
Okay.
you're tuned in to the spiritual vibration of the place. You can cause some cognitive dissonance,
All
you could
right.
say. So I think it's good that I wasn't able to go when I was younger, but when I was older and a little more
Mature?
established,
Right.
you know,
Yes. Of
I think it was good that it happened that way.
Okay.
But the point is that in the writings of the spiritual tradition of India, there are accounts of human populations existing on the earth millions and millions of years ago. And it's something quite different than anything I'd ever heard from my teachers in high school and university. They're of the
Sure, I bet.
opinion that humans like us came into existence fairly recently, within the past 200 or 300,000 years. They now say so. Uh, that evidence, there's the evidence for extreme human antiquity that's given in the Vedic literature of ancient India. As I said, it's different than what modern science now tells us.
Okay.
But I wondered, maybe there's some factual basis for it, because this idea that humans like us have been around since the beginning is not just there in the spiritual traditions from ancient India, it's in many of the world's great spiritual traditions. So I began to think, are these accounts just mythological, or
Okay.
is there perhaps some factual basis for it? So that's what got me looking into the history of archaeology. In the current textbooks, you don't find any evidence for humans and human civilizations existing many
No,
millions of years ago.
absolutely not. No.
But I decided, and this may have something to do with it being brought up uh, with a father in the intelligence service and meeting other people involved in that field of in that profession, in that field. I learned very early on that there is such a thing as hidden knowledge, that there are things going on in the world that many people are just not aware of. So that made me think, okay, if I look in the current textbooks of archaeology, I see only the evidence that supports the current dominant theories.
Right.
And I thought, well, let me look beyond the textbooks. Let me look in the original scientific reports. And when I
Right, of
did
where
that,
of when the original discovery was made? You mean as far as
yeah, because
okay.
there are two kinds of literature in the scientific field. You could say primary and secondary. Primary is the original reports by archaeologists, geologists, other scientists who dig into the earth. And that's the primary literature.
Right, and unfortunately a lot of
Secondary,
people don't do that. They don't never ever go back to those original reports. They go by what's been given out as, oh, when they went there, this is what they found, and nobody does what you're describing that you did.
yeah. So I was surprised when I started looking into the original reports. There were many reports of scientists finding human bones, human artifacts, human footprints, going much further back in time than the current theories allow. So you could say it was my encounter with this information from the spiritual tradition of ancient India that got me looking into this topic that I call forbidden archaeology. It's also the title of my book
Yes.
that I'm best known for.
The When you started going in and examining this, Michael, and like you said, you looked at what the original reports of whoever it was that did maybe in an archaeological dig versus what maybe you had to learn in school. Did you ever think, okay, why aren't they saying the truth? Why aren't they going ahead and reproducing the information that the person that came on, or maybe the consensus back then, or maybe if it was there ever a reason that you came up with is why they would either, how can I, what's the word I'm looking for, massage the truth or omit it?
Uh, yes, and I think it has to do with some decisions that were made in the world of science
All
going
right.
back about 500 years or so.
Okay.
If we go back to science in Europe, 400 or 500 years ago, we see that scientists were studying things that are now considered completely out of bounds, different
Mm-hmm.
paranormal phenomena, vital energies, uh, higher dimensional beings,
Yeah,
uh,
alchemy. There was.
alchemy, all of the astrology, all of
Mm-hmm.
these topics that are now considered out of bounds. They were
Mm-hmm.
studied, but the scientists who were more influential at that time, they proposed, okay, let's get away from the strange stuff. I'm just using a modern term for it,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
but and let's just focus on ordinary matter, the chemical elements, and get away from the mystical and the paranormal and all of that.
Right.
And that so they did that. And by that focus on matter and leaving aside spiritual energies, consciousness, spirits, mind, and all of that, let's just focus on matter, how it operates. And it was very successful in the sense that by focusing on ordinary matter, they got a lot of understanding of how it operates and how to manipulate it. And because of that, they were able to develop technologies. They were able to develop things that governments liked, like better weapons
Mm-hmm.
of war,
Sure.
better battleships, better guns, better weapons of all kinds. So the governments liked that and they invested money in it.
Exactly.
And the scientists were able to come up with pharmaceuticals
Right. I'm
that,
sure that they funded these universities or whoever they were working through. Because basically, that's one of the things for development of whether it's like you said, drugs or anything. It's money to do the experiments to develop it. So
yeah.
yeah, I can see where the money might have been put into certain places more than others.
Now, and then they also developed consumer products that
Yes.
corporations could sell other than the pharmaceuticals. And people liked it, the corporations liked it, the governments liked the tax money that they could collect based on all that economic activity. And
Mm-hmm.
it gradually, science in every area began to have that focus on ordinary matter. And
I
what
can see.
happened,
Yeah, like what is that? Follow the money kind of thing. Yeah, I see where you're going.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Now, in more recent times, beginning in the 19th century, with Charles Darwin and his publication of The Origin of Species, they were finally able to bring human behavior into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, what they did is they have convinced people that basically we're machines made of matter, we're machines made of molecules in competition with each other for survival.
Right.
and as far as consciousness is concerned, well, that's just a temporary byproduct of bioelectrical activity in the brain. And it's temporary. At the time of death, when the chemicals in the brain, the neurons stop interacting, then there's no more consciousness, no more self, everything is gone.
Right.
But if you had a different concept that uh, consciousness has its own separate existence apart from matter, it doesn't come from matter, it has its own separate existence, then that would mean a different sense of identity. And creating a person's sense of identity is important because we tend, based on our sense of who we are, we form our goals, our values, objectives in life.
Okay.
So part of this, you could call it knowledge filtration, that's involved in archaeology, is because it the evidence of the kind that I report
Okay.
is very difficult to explain by any purely material process of evolution because it doesn't account for consciousness. Those
Okay.
types of things don't
Yeah. What was it
explain.
that the survival of the fittest? That was Darwin's thing. As far as like what you said, it was purely on a physical level. As far
Yeah.
as and it
So
left
if
out
you,
any emotional, mental, spiritual. That didn't really matter.
yeah,
Yeah.
and if one accepts that identity that I'm a machine made of molecules in competition with others for survival, economic survival, political survival, whatever, then your goals and values tend to be very materialistic. You think that to
Yes.
produce and consume more and more material things is the main purpose of human life.
Yes.
And that's what many people, under the influence of these ideas that are promoted throughout the education systems around the
Yes.
world,
Yes, I believe so.
that keeps people in that mentality.
Consumerism kind of they drive that behavior where they make you think that we'll go with a product, whatever, or possession of, that's it. Is the end all be all. Whether you want status or in some cases happiness, and we kind of get all these messages from very early in childhood to drive a certain behavior, like what you're describing, and making us think that this is part of our, I don't know what, I don't want to say survival, but in some cases, for some people, it is, equivalent to that, where you need certain things and you really don't need them. It's just they make you think that you're going to be very happy once you have them, depending on what it is that we're talking. So yeah,
Mhm.
the I agree that unfortunately we get our behavior shaped from very early in life towards these things.
Yes. Um, and the effect of it is that people get involved in terms of their livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
They work in institutions and organizations that are dedicated to this process of material production and consumption, which
Yes.
generates wealth, which flows into certain pockets in a way that's, everything's not being distributed fairly.
Well, and
So
and
you have
right.
and if people's sense of identity were to change, if instead of thinking I'm a machine made of molecules in competition with
Mm-hmm.
others individually and collectively for survival,
Right.
happiness, if we had a different sense of identity, I'm a being of pure consciousness, you're a being of pure consciousness, were all beings of pure consciousness, we would have a different set of political, economic, financial,
Oh boy, that's
social,
an
cultural,
understatement. Boy.
and
Yeah, but wouldn't
you
that
know,
be?
because you'd be thinking, okay, we can satisfy our material needs in the most simple, natural, fair, and efficient
Mm-hmm.
way
Yeah,
possible, while putting most of our human energy into developing our consciousness,
sure.
learning how to live with each other
Yeah.
peacefully, harmoniously.
Yes.
That it would be a different set of institutions that would support that kind of mentality and activity. And there are forces in the world that wouldn't really like to see that.
No.
So I think that's why certain areas of research that you might be familiar with, or some of your
Well, this
viewers and
is
your audience.
well, because basically what you're and I think what happens is what you're describing is an alternate type of history, or at least human history. And then I think that what happens is if that ever came out, then eventually populations will start questioning more like, okay, so what else is there that we've been misled about, that the history that was given out or is taught at school is that's not accurate? Or what is our past? Then we go, yeah. In other words, it opens the door to questions that maybe nobody, in other words, and I'm going to blame also academia for this, where they want this certain truth, even if maybe at some point whoever decided, it was like their egos were involved in it, and they could never say, no, we were wrong about what, you know, some theory we posited. It turns out that we're wrong. They don't. Plus, like you said, if, how's this? If you're getting money from, let's say, a government or anywhere to follow a certain, you're getting funded. How's that? Eventually, this is what's developed. And if, you ever came up or discovered or whatever, something different, they'd be like, don't, no, you're not going to go there. Get rid of that evidence or whatever it is that you found, or what. We're gonna act like it doesn't exist. But why? I guess in some cases because it's not really the truth that they're after, at least not all the time. How's that? When you went to India, what did you decide to do besides going and doing research on a material? Did you ever go to certain places where you actually found something that corresponded with what you had researched, let's say on paper?
Uh, yes. And of course, I go there for many reasons.
Okay.
Sometimes it is, for conducting research on different books or articles I may be writing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's to give lectures at universities and other places. And
Okay.
then sometimes, and this is the main thing for me, it's to get in touch with the spiritual energies that are connected with different sacred places.
Okay.
I'm initiated into a specific spiritual path. It's called the path of Bhakti yoga. Bhakti means devotion, love and devotion.
Okay.
So there's a system of yoga that's based on that. And there are different sacred places connected with that because ultimately we're beings of pure consciousness, and we all have a common source. There's a source of all conscious, intelligent, personal beings. And that source is also personal, conscious, and individual. But, and there are different names that can be applied. A common one is Krishna.
Okay.
So discovering one's eternal, loving relationship with the source of all conscious beings, which enables one to properly love and harmoniously coexist and cooperate with all other beings of pure consciousness.
Did
There
you
are
ever
different
go to a
states.
certain site, Michael, where when you went, I don't know whether you expected or not, that you were, like you said, you went to some sacred site,
Yes.
that you were surprised or something unexpected happened there, even though maybe you might have known it or anticipated it?
Yeah.
Did you?
It's like, um, for example, there's different sacred sites that are connected with avatars.
Mm-hmm.
Avatar means a being that descends from a higher level of the cosmos to this world to give conscious selves a taste of the experience of that higher world. So, one such place is Mayapur
Mm-hmm.
in West Bengal in India. It's about 90 miles north of Calcutta. It's on the
Okay.
Ganges River. And 500 years ago, an avatar appeared there named Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya for short.
Okay.
And at this, he recommended that people meditate and chant mantras. Mantras are specific patterns of sound that if you utter them and concentrate the mind on them, have the power to give you that higher experience. So I went there once and I was in a temple and I was participating in that um, chanting of this mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra. And it was like being swept up in a whirlpool of ecstatic emotions and feelings where you're just completely detached from the world of matter and totally absorbed in ananda, a higher type of pleasure that comes when the soul is in contact with these spiritual energies. So that's the value of going to these sacred places. It's not just like going on a tour to Paris
Right.
or
Yes, like the
London.
tourist version.
It's not like a tourist experience.
Exactly. Did you ever
It's
live in India, or would you just go to visit these sacred places?
um, I haven't lived in India longer than 2 or 3 months at a
Okay.
time.
All right.
I'm, in my home is here in the West,
Right.
in Los Angeles now, but
Okay.
uh, it's interesting that one can create one's own spiritual atmosphere so that the place where one is can become a sacred space also.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you're attuned to the correct spiritual vibration, you're
Why would it matter where
absorbed
you
in that.
are? You should be
Yeah,
able
it
to
doesn't
fit.
matter where you
It's not
are.
like I have to go to a certain place. No, wherever you are, you should be able to connect to that source. You shouldn't have to go like up the mountain, yeah, or like no, go to this one. No, there's always if it's there wherever you are, you should be able to access it. Um,
Yes.
the Did you ever go to any other Let me ask you, do you think that in some of these sacred places there's what I'm going to use the word that's commonly used, which is like a portal, which is something where there's either a passageway between dimensions, or there's something there that I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, that beyond the spiritual aspects, that there's some actually a physical doorway between this dimension and maybe another?
Yes, absolutely. I I do accept that that is like a portal where you can have access to higher dimensions of reality. You know, that was basically the kind of experience I was recounting to you. But
Okay.
I've been to other sacred places as well. I mean,
Okay.
when I was younger, back in 1960s, late 1960s, I was traveling around Europe,
Okay.
and I went to spend some of the part of the winter in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm Roman Catholic by birth, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, I went there and worked on a kibbutz.
I was gonna say you went to kibbutz. Okay.
Yeah, and when Christmas came, the people at the kibbutz said, "Well, maybe you'd like to go to Jerusalem and Bethlehem, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for Christmas." I said, "Yeah." So they gave us a couple of days off. Basically, I had been picking oranges,
Okay.
at that place. Gave us a
Okay.
couple of days off so I went to Bethlehem, and it's a part of the world where there's sometimes conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of maybe 2 years before, there had been a war, 1967, and this was maybe Christmas of 1969.
Mm-hmm.
So on Christmas Eve in uh, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, uh, there weren't hardly any people there. I mean, normally there would be hundreds of thousands of people in what they call the
Okay.
manger square,
Yes.
where they have some churches that are connected with the place where Christ was born. So I went there, and it was a really good experience. There was, as I said, hardly anyone there.
Sometimes,
Practically
believe it,
had the
that's the
place
sometimes that is the best way when you
place to
don't have
myself,
to. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You have the place to yourself. Yes.
and there's the Church of the Nativity, and they have
Mm-hmm.
a passageway that goes down into the ground, and there's a cave under the ground there where they say was the actual place that Christ was born, which is what Christmas is supposed to be about.
Right.
But I went there, and there were these Belgian nuns singing Latin Christmas
All
carols.
right. Okay.
And although I've kind of moved on to other things, it was
Uh-huh.
still a sacred place, and I
Yes.
appreciated it, and I did feel some special energy there, and I felt that this was really an interesting arrangement the higher powers had made, that I was able to be in that place.
You always find that every once in a while they'll print where in Jerusalem they'll be doing some type of digging for like a building, and they'll come
Mhm.
across all these relics, or you know, 'cause you know how in the city it builds on top of what was there before, and they've discovered tunnels, they've discovered a bunch of things when they've been renovating or building things. as far as what's actually there on the land, is what I'm saying, beyond what you see
Yeah.
at the top. I mean, of course, it has history, but yeah.
Yeah, history's all over there. I'm just walking on practically any place you walk there. You look at the ground and you see there's shards of pottery that may be thousands of years old. And,
Right.
it's don't even have to dig for it. It's
Is
history
there?
is right there. But
Let me ask you, what do you, since you opened the conversation with as how far back have humans been around? Do you believe that the stories of Atlantis are accurate or have some basis in truth?
I do think that the story of Atlantis has some truth. But I think, the presence of humans on this planet, I believe, goes back to the very beginning of the history of life on Earth,
Okay.
because according to the different wisdom traditions that I'm connected with, the universe, the Earth, everything in it has a purpose. In
Okay.
other words, we're not accidental creatures existing in an accidental universe,
Right.
as many scientists today would have us believe. In other words, they would say, we're just an accident of evolution, natural selection,
Right.
things like, and there's no real purpose to life other than what we make of it. And, just produce, consume material things as long as you can, and then it's all finished. But I think the universe has a purpose, and it's to allow conscious selves to understand their higher nature and achieve it if they want to. But it's a dual purpose universe. If one wants to live in forgetfulness of one's higher nature, then that opportunity is also available. So, yeah, but it has a purpose.
So you don't, well, from what you're telling me, is that theory of evolution as far as man is concerned, that the primate, and that finally it came down from the trees, and which, by the way, they've never been able to locate the so-called missing link, whatever, that's not accurate, that we from the beginning were, as when I say modern man, as we are right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one thing to understand, the way I look at things, is that any type of body, whether it's a human body or a plant body, animal body, pigeon body, it's it's a vehicle for a conscious self. In other words, the
Okay.
real self is different than the bodily vehicle that it occupies.
Okay.
The bodily vehicle is temporary. It's
Mm-hmm.
made of material elements. It comes into being at a certain point in time. It persists for a certain length of time, and then it disintegrates. It's gone. Of course, I believe in reincarnation, that the
Okay.
conscious self or the soul, when a particular bodily vehicle is finished, when it's over, based on the state of one's consciousness, one will get another bodily vehicle.
Okay.
And there are millions of kinds of bodily vehicles a conscious self could occupy. But all material bodies are vehicles for souls.
Do you think then, like,
And
in reincarnation, that humans only reincarnate in humans, or they can reincarnate in any type of vehicle to use?
any type of vehicle, the
Okay.
human vehicle is considered especially valuable because in the human vehicle, it has the intelligence and the capability of appreciating and understanding the kinds of things that we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
and acting on them. So that's the special advantage of a human vehicle.
Right.
And if one uses it properly, one will come to understand what one's identity as a eternal conscious individual uh, being really is. Now, one could make in one human life maybe 5% progress towards reaching that goal.
Okay.
So if one has made the attempt to understand one's real identity, then if one hasn't completed the process, then one will get another human vehicle and take up where one left off, you know. So
As far as what to, I guess, to learn what you didn't learn in the prior lifetime as a human.
yeah, yeah.
So, are we talking here like, and I'm going to use the word like karma? Do you think that karma sometimes is visited on a soul when they come back? Let's go with the human that reincarnates in another human body. That
Uh,
they have to, how's this? In other words, that they have to deal with the karma, good or bad, in that following lifetime, or is it something that happens to you in your present lifetime?
it could be both.
Okay.
Uh, the the good or bad karma reactions can be coming from activities that one has performed in a past life, either good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
or it can be more immediate from uh, things that we do now, and we may get some immediate reaction.
Okay.
But the goal is to be free of all karma, good or bad, because karma is experienced in a material body, which
Yes.
is subject to birth, death, old age, and disease.
Right.
And so the goal of the conscious self is to get out of the cycle of birth and death, of karma, good and bad karma,
Do you think
and
it's
to be,
possible? I know I'm being, but it's almost, I want to say, I think that living as a human being in this world, I can't, I don't know how you would ever, maybe I don't know, maybe it's because I just don't understand it, or how you would ever be able to lead a life without karma. In other words, where you end up with even, no karma, good or bad, that's it. It's like, that's almost like, I would think, impossible.
well, if one restricts oneself to trying to behave in a certain way in material society, I think you're right about that, which is the necessity of understanding that there are various kinds of energies operating in the cosmos. Some of them are spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
some of them are material. And
Okay.
the material energies can take you either to a materially good position
All right.
or a materially bad position, but it's still within the material world. Now, and this gets back to the sacred places and things that we were talking about a little bit earlier. Those portals, like of sacred places,
Okay.
and the energies that come from the sound of mantras, which are spiritual sound vibrations that come from a higher level of reality. If one absorbs oneself in uh, giving attention to and immersing oneself in those spiritual energies, then that gives one the ability to transcend the, trying to behave in a certain way so that you get either a good or bad situation in this world. I don't know if
I guess what I'm saying is that it almost you almost think, okay, for you to achieve that balance of no karma, good or bad, it's almost like no interaction with anybody. It's like, so it would be so difficult because there's, whether you are, how's this, whether you, let's say, are in control of yourself, once you are coexist with other humans, that's like the X factor. Not everybody's on the same page, and depending on the circumstances or what another person does, I mean, there's always that variable. That I would say about the only way you could achieve that is if you lived on an island by yourself, with that kind of deal, because it's almost like living on Earth, here in this. It's like your hand's gonna be forced one way or another to do something
yes,
that's produce some type of karmic outcome, good or bad. But there it is.
no, that is a problem.
Yeah.
So, because I definitely appreciate what you're saying, that it would seem that one would have to withdraw from all social dealings. And there are personalities who have done that,
Right.
gone off into the Himalayas
Yeah, the
and
aesthetics and things like that. Yeah.
ascetics like that. That that is one path. Another path, which is more common in the tradition that I follow, is that uh, you don't change your position. You learn how to dovetail or connect your uh, your dealings with a higher spiritual purpose,
Okay.
and it's helpful also if one associates with like-minded people.
Sure.
For
Of course.
example, uh, and there are associations of people. I mean, I belong to an organization where there are other people engaged in a similar practice and with similar beliefs that support each other
Okay.
in their efforts for transcendence. So yeah, it it is, as you were saying and pointing out, Marlene, it was like it it seems that you would have to withdraw from all social dealings.
I think
But
humans are quarrelsome. How's that? By this I don't mean, but we're quarrelsome. We're subject to jealousy. Yeah. By this I'm not saying a bad person. I'm just saying, personality conflicts.
mhm,
Uh, you know, think people, a person that you meet that you just, they don't, you and them don't gel. You're just like, there's so many things that it's like, oh, you know, it's, and of course, the, like you said, I guess if there was a way that you could select who you surround yourself with exclusively, and you're all on the same page, I could see where, we're like, we understand, we speak the same language, is what I mean. But when you live in the world and sometimes you don't have that luxury, that's why I'm thinking that it would be really difficult because you're bound to be
yeah,
like, okay, that's it. I'm losing my whatever equanimity on this. And, because I just think it's the nature of the beast that is, and I think even the best people that happens because we just react. Like you were saying earlier, we are not mechanical. We are, we're humans, and there's more to us than just whatever, whatever we're made of, the skin suit, if you want to call it that, with all the
Right.
neurons and everything going on. It's almost like when I talk about Mission Impossible. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
one, oh, go ahead.
no, no, no. I'm just saying. Do you do you think then that a lot of this viewpoint that you're talking about, as far as our origins and basically, for lack of a better word, what would make us happy or complete, has been kind of like hijacked because the need for consumerism, which will produce money, like you said, for whoever owns whatever company, fill in the blank. That, like, in other words, that's why we get taught what we get taught from an early age, because we're being taught that, well, that will make you happy, when in reality it doesn't.
Uh, yes. And to get back to your point, I think you were expressing it very well. Like how does one relate if one has chosen, a spiritual path, and how does one relate to others who may
Yes.
not be on that same page with
Mm-hmm.
you? I think that's a very fundamental question. But I think if quite apart from any identification with a spiritual path or anything, we, even just as ordinary human beings living in any kind of society,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we pick who we include in our circle of friends or acquaintances or relatives. Uh, People are doing it anyways,
Right.
you know, and then people who have like interests, they may join like a book reading club or a
Exactly.
sports club. Maybe they like kayaking, so they hang out with people into kayaking and things
Exactly.
like that. So we're
I think,
doing it
though,
anyways.
sometimes we're just forced into, let's say, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think a lot. What's that old saying? Birds of a feather flock together. I think a lot has to do with who we surround ourselves with. I think, though, of instances, for example, if you have a job and you go to work and you have no control over who your coworkers are, who your bosses are, you understand what I'm saying? That is like,
Absolutely.
mm, yeah, that, what is it? The best, despite your best intentions. That's why I'm saying that's, I don't know, that it's like I'm gonna put my karmic foot in this real big, somewhere along the line. But at the same time, I understand what you're saying as far as it being a worthy goal. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, another way to look at that, like, is that ultimately, I would say we're all related, not just those of us in human vehicles, but all
Mm-hmm.
living things are related
Okay.
as beings of pure consciousness. Ultimately, that's what the fact is.
Yes, I agree.
So we do have a relationship with everyone.
Yes.
Now, there are different stages of awareness of that connection. In one stage, you could call it the beginning stage, one is aware of only oneself as a being a pure consciousness. And everything else or everyone, every other being is, kind of perceived as being different in some way. And that's one stage of awareness. And on another stage of awareness, one appreciates I'm a being of pure consciousness. Others are also beings of pure consciousness, but they're in different positions. Some of them are perceived as being uh, uh, on the same path as oneself. Others are on a different path with different
Sure,
goals and
exactly.
objectives,
Yes.
and but they're benign. They're not threatening in any way. And
Mm-hmm.
then there are those who are on different paths that appear to be opposed
Yeah.
or actively resisting or persecuting
Yes.
uh,
Yes, I believe that. Like, yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
So
Yes.
that's another level of awareness, which
Right.
is the uh, level that I would say I'm on, where I can
Okay.
perceive, okay, I'm a being of pure consciousness, I'm on a spiritual path. And then there may be others who are on the same spiritual path as me. I try to
Mm-hmm.
appreciate them.
Right.
Then there are others who may be on other spiritual paths, but are not putting out negativity
Right.
towards others. And then there are those who may be
Yeah.
not on a spiritual path, but not putting out negativity. And then there are those that either are or aren't, but are acting in a very negative way towards others.
Yes.
But on the
Yes.
highest level of awareness, one will perceive everyone else as a being of pure consciousness, and I am the one who's in a improper state.
How many years have you been involved in this practice now, Michael? For how long?
Oh, since the mid 1970s, about 50 years.
Wow. Okay. So, um, well, yeah, and I guess that's one of the, because sometimes when you're young, you come across certain belief systems or certain practices, but then they fall away. You see what I'm saying? As life goes
Sure.
on, they fall away for different reasons. But in this case, 50 years, I think definitely it's something that for you has brought you, I imagine, answers to maybe the questions that you had, way back then, and as you went along through life, that are meaningful. How's that? That are
Yeah.
meaningful.
Yeah.
Because
And
there's a lot of belief systems out there that are very trite, like kind of like a package deal kind of deal thing. Like, so, I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's different. Everybody's soul is fed by different things. So, depending on what they're, what's going up in here, or what their experiences are. Do
well, one
you?
thing
I'm
oh,
sorry.
go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No, no,
No,
no.
you
Go ahead.
go. I was going to say one thing it helped me understand, and this gets back to the title of your show or your
Mm-hmm.
podcast,
Yes.
is it helped me understand what a ghost is.
Okay.
Because according to the Vedic philosophy, a human being is made of three things: a gross physical body, a subtle material mental body,
Okay.
and the actual conscious self, the soul. So you could understand it in terms of a computer analogy, like the gross physical bodies, like the computer hardware, the subtle mental body, which is also material, but very subtle, very fine, and with some very unusual powers. That is the like the software that allows the user to interact with the hardware.
Right.
Like a computer user will use software to get the computer to do different things that the user would like to do.
Yes.
So you've got body, mind, and spirit. Now, according to this concept, at the time of death, what happens is the gross physical body is left behind, but the subtle mental body goes with one.
Okay.
And according to the state of the subtle mental body, one gets another gross physical body. That's the normal process. But in some cases, the self, conscious self, the soul remains in the subtle mental body and doesn't get another gross physical body. So then it's kind of in an intermediate stage. And
Let me
uh,
ask you, then in the tradition that you're talking about, because, you know, I'm going to go with the Western idea of a ghost, even though I know that in other parts of the world, they're similar. You always think of a ghost as being, you know, someone that was troubled, whether, the manner of their death, it was violent or unexpected or something like that. Are you
yes,
saying then that in your belief system, that's not how it works? Or why would there be
no,
a ghost? How's that?
no, exactly what you're saying. The normal process is that when a person leaves one body, they get another gross physical body based on the state of their subtle mental body.
Okay.
If because of the reasons that you stated, there was they maybe they were suicide, maybe they had some bad circumstances
Mm-hmm.
surrounding their the death, the manner in which they left their body, they may not immediately get another gross physical body to kind of continue their journey. They're kind of left with just the subtle mental body,
Okay.
and which has within it all the desires and things like that.
Okay. Like
That,
if they did when they had a physical body to go with it.
yeah, but then they've got no physical body to
Yeah.
carry out their desires and wishes. So they
Yeah.
wind
I
up
want to have a drink, but I
creating,
don't have a taste buds. I don't have a body to satisfy
yeah.
that need. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes what they do is they try to possess
Yes.
the bodies of people who maybe because of intoxication or some
Yeah.
other factor are their subtle mental body is in a position where it can be taken control
Right.
over.
Like maybe and in some and I don't know if that's the aura. Yeah, and I know what you're saying as far as, for lack of a better word, that the defenses are down because maybe whatever their lifestyle is.
Yeah,
I mean, there's different reasons, and they kind of like hit piggyback on on that person as an attachment. Yes, I've heard of that. Is there? Let me ask you though. As long as, and this is me, I'm assuming, as long as this mental body is out there, I imagine the reincarnation cannot take place, right?
um, no, it takes place because of the mental body. The mental body is what connects the soul to the
Mm-hmm.
to the gross physical body.
Right.
You know, uh, the original position of the conscious self or the soul is that it's it exists on a higher level,
Okay.
what I call the level of pure consciousness or spirit.
Mm-hmm.
If it becomes influenced by the desire to control, dominate, and exploit others, and it
Okay.
always has the ability to either do that or not do that. But if it happens that it develops such a desire, comes to the material world where it is connected with a gross physical body by the subtle mental body, which causes the soul to identify the gross physical body with its real self. Actually, it's not the real self, but
Okay.
and according to the state of the subtle mental body, in the process of reincarnation, one gets different gross physical bodies. If one comes to the state of complete self realization or awareness, the subtle mental body disappears. There's no
Okay.
more gross physical bodies. One is just the being of pure consciousness on that level. So, and we can, it may be a little challenging to imagine these things, but just like I know that I'm not my gross physical body, I say I have a body. Well, who is the I that has a
Right.
body?
Exactly.
That's the real self. I can also say today my mind is disturbed, my mind is feeling happy. We're aware of the state, the condition of our subtle material mental body. But again, we have to ask, well, who is the I that is saying my mind
Exactly.
is feeling this? So if we analyze it introspectively, if we contemplate these things and uh, by introspection sort them out, anyone can really see they're not their body, they're not their mind. They're the subjective, conscious individual personality who's saying, I have a mind, I have a
Most people
body.
find that is a very difficult thing for people to do that. You know that, right?
Yes,
That
I
thing of
know.
like extremely difficult to do, just because it takes a lot of self-awareness, continuous self-awareness to be able to make the distinction that you just described. Because I
Yes.
guess also we're bombarded by different, it's not only what goes up in here, it's like also what comes in through, to us, that makes it very difficult to remember, the me that's not the body, that kind of deal.
Oh,
Michael,
yeah.
it's
I'm struggling with it.
no, I mean, I can have something. It's like, it's very to be in, I guess what you call the observer mode, which is where you could look at yourself or the situations or others, which, of course, from observer mode, it's controlling your emotions or reactions or your, instant reactions. It's much more controlled when you're in observer mode. But that's difficult to do. I can tell you
I
right
like
now.
that. I like that observer mode.
That's what it is. You're observing. It's like, you're like sitting there going, the reason why also I do is I was a hypnotherapist and I did past life regression on a lot of people. And depending on what they were going back to, I had to put them in observer mode because they would react depending on what they saw. They
Mm.
would react like if they were there, even if it wasn't, they didn't look like what they were now. They knew it was them. And depending on what they were seeing, and by I mean that, you know, in the hypnotic state, they would want to react. So a lot of time I would have to put them in observer mode too. It's like I don't, maybe what you're seeing is a violent death or something traumatic or something, but that was then. This is, in other words, let's pull you back. So I understand exactly what you mean as far as being able to see something almost like, even though even nowadays you go to see a movie and you can get into it. You're all of a sudden you're in the movie, things like that. But yeah, that takes that's I can see where you would have to be somebody that's very disciplined in order to do that. I'm
Well,
not.
I think the,
I'm,
the movie example
I'm
is
too
good.
emotional. Uh-huh.
The movie example is good
Yeah.
because I mean, what happens is you go, I mean, of course, not everybody goes to movie theaters.
No,
So
not
many other
anymore.
ways to see film. But in the traditional old school way of going to see a movie in a theater, you
Yes.
go into a dark room and
I'm talking
sit
about putting you
down
in a trance. That'll put you in a trance. You put the
and
right beat of
it
music, and there you go.
right you and if the director of the film has done a good job, then you
Mm-hmm.
identify with one of the
Yes.
characters.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
if
of
it's an
course.
Alfred
Absolutely.
Hitchcock movie, you know, you'll feel, you know, you're going down the dark hallway and
Yeah. Everything. Yeah.
feel
You immerse
afraid.
yourself in that experience. And
Yeah.
like you said, that's really the thing where, and of course the setting absolutely has something that, like you said, you're in a dark theater, the music, depending on the tempo that they've given it, if it's coming in at all directions, and all of a sudden, instead of you observing, you're there, you're experiencing it, which to a lot of people this is like great. But yeah, yeah, there's a lot of things as far as conditioning of the human's person, mind, subconscious, that can be, what's the word I'm looking for, manipulated. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that more than once. Anyway, Michael, what for my podcast listeners, how can they reach you? Do you have a web page, or how can, if they wanted to go ahead and follow up, especially with the book that you wrote, The Forbidden Archaeology, how can they find you?
The best place to start is my website, mcremo.com,
Mm-hmm.
mcremo.com. And
Okay.
there people can find my books. Actually, we have a special offer.
Okay.
I've written several books. Some of them deal with stones and bones, like Forbidden Archaeology.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, the abridged version. Forbidden Archaeology is uh, 900 pages long, but
Oh,
I produced a summary version of it that's 300
oh
pages.
wow. Oh my God. 900 pages? What? That's a lot of
Yeah,
research there. That's
yeah, about
incredible.
eight years of research, but uh, some
All
people call
right.
it forbidding archaeology because it looks just so forbidding. You don't want to even pick it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So the offer includes the abridged version, the popular version of it, the hidden
Mm-hmm.
history of the human race. And then
Okay.
in my book, Human Devolution, I deal with a lot of these questions that we're talking about related to consciousness, reincarnation, meditation, karma,
Mm-hmm.
all those things. So, and then and then three other books are also included in a special offer, which they'll find on the book page, and it will also have links to upcoming interviews
Okay.
on different media and any upcoming in-person speaking events that I'll be
Okay. So
doing.
you're gonna also have all your events listed on there. Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
mcremo.com.
You got it. I'm gonna put a link in the credits of the show. Michael, it has
Oh,
been
great.
absolutely fascinating to talk to you. Okay.
Well,
Um,
I was looking forward to this.
oh, that's
I lived
great.
in Miami for a couple of years,
Oh, okay. All right. So
and
did you live? Yeah. So you
I
know what
know
I'm
a
talking
little
about,
bit.
that Florida heat. Yeah, that'll do it to you. I'm telling you. Because
Yeah,
my son, he was when he was in the Navy, he was stationed out there in Coronado Island, and of course, he was my baby. So I went out there to see him a few times. And it's a different kind of heat out in California. It's like a drier heat,
yeah,
versus here in Florida, especially in South Florida. It's that humid, sticky, sweat a lot heat, that kind of
yeah.
deal. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Again, thank you so much, Michael. I have loved every moment that, and like again, people, like I said, I have a link to your website, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for hosting me. I really enjoyed it, Marlene.
Yes, absolutely. Likewise. Take care.
Okay.
Bye bye. Let me tell you, I guess I'm not I'm not spiritually advanced because I don't know. Yeah, I'd be probably a lot of negative karma. It's that thing about being the bigger person all the time. Yeah, that works all the time, but and again, what's that saying about the best intentions? Sometimes best intentions don't always take you where you want to go. And you know what? Let me see. I'm going to cut this short because you guys can't hear this, but outside I hear my guineas putting up a tremendous racket. So I thank you guys, but I got to let you guys go because I think I am going to have to go save some guinea necks. Till next time, you're all wonderful. Take care.